Hello, hi everyone. Welcome to the seminar on please. Welcome to the seminar on web accessibility. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Binita Tamang. I'm working as senior UI designer here. I joined Mindfire solution in 2012. Since then, I'm working here as the designer. And on the fun side, it will be incomplete if I say that if I wouldn't introduce myself as the first employee to join in Mindfire Solutions Bangalore. I work closely with the open source team led by Satish, and I love doing design works. My hobbies include music, dance, sketching, and interiors. Now, the idea behind the seminar on web accessibility is like when you are creating anything, for anything beautiful, useful, and amazing to be created, it's very essential that you actually feel for it. We have to invest our emotions along with our intellect to create something that is useful and that will be impacting a lot of people in any which way possible. So the purpose of this seminar is to give you an overview of the web accessibility, but with it lies the latent motive of awakening empathy towards our end users, that is, their needs, their environment, and their limitations. The idea is to develop websites and applications keeping the end users in context so as to make it as accessible to as many people as possible. Okay, now there are a few topics which I'll be going to discuss on today. The first one is what is web accessibility and why it is important. The second is what is an accessible design. The third is the statistics of global population, web users, etc. And then we have defining WAI and ARIA. I'll give you an overview of web accessibility guidelines and standards. After that, we have is web accessibility checklist, common web accessibility issues, and how to make web accessible. Then we have is types of disabilities, then assistive technologies for people with disabilities. Then there will be a video to show you like how a screen reader actually works, video on Braille display, then web accessibility tools, online checkers, and then very common mistakes or ignorance that we do during web development. And then ultimately I'll be sharing you some useful links and resources. Okay, now can any of you tell me like what is web accessibility? Like without reading the screen. Web is a network, so it has to be accessible to as many people as possible. It's not like we select a group of users and only to those users the content is available. We have to make it in such a way that like people across all age groups with disabilities, normal people, everybody can access it, and they can perceive, understand, navigate, and interact with the web easily, and also they should be able to contribute to the web. Now, web accessibility encompasses all disabilities that affect access to the web, including visual. So when we are doing web development, we have to put into consideration like few disabilities like visual, auditory. Visual is like people who do not have the gift of the sight, blind people, and auditory, that is people who cannot hear, physical disabilities, speech, cognitive, and neurological disabilities. These things I'll discuss later as we go on. Next thing is like what is an accessible design. This already I have discussed, like design which can be accessed by everybody regardless of age, regardless of the disability one person is having, and like it should be independent of the browser, the medium from where we are accessing. The type of design which goes through all of it, which passes all this criteria, can be regarded as an accessible design, because like when we are developing a site or an application, we cannot restrict that application to a particular user, or like or like we cannot depend upon like whether the user is using mouse or not, whether he is accessing the web or the application with the keyboard alone. We have to keep all these things in mind so as to create an accessible design. There are like ways how people access the internet. Like users who are blind might not access a web page, might access a web page using audible interface, that is screen reader softwares. Blind people will not be able to see, so it's obvious that there has to be something auditory for them to get to like what is happening in the web, what the web is all about. And users with low vision might view the page with large fonts or a high contrast color. This happens especially with the people with old age. They have a problem in reading very small font size, and also with the color contrast they will not be able to make out like if there is a very slight difference in the background color and the text, it will be very difficult for them to read. So we have to keep those things in mind. And people with physical disabilities sometimes might not if suppose my I do not have a right hand, then I will not be able to use the mouse or any other keyboard function. So that time, like what are the things that can be done to make it accessible? Basically, the website is all about to bring in everybody, because we all are software developers and designers. So it is very important for us to think from their point of view, how a blind person is using the web, how a deaf person will be reading the same content. It's majorly to focus that, to build that empathy towards the users. This is the same as like why it is equally important, because web is really a very vast source of information, and it is for everybody. The source of information can vary from education and employment, government, commerce, healthcare, recreation, and more. So it is equally important for each and every person to get access to those information and it is our responsibility to look into it and make it accessible to a greater extent. Now we the world, our total global population is above 7+ billion people. So of all these people, like 6 billion people have cell phone, 1.2 billion people are people with disabilities, 600 million people are above the age of 60 years, 1 billion people are mobile workers, 900 million people have low literacy or illiterate, and then 5 billion people have never used internet, 1 billion people have used the internet for less than 5 years, and out of 10 people in every group we see like one person is using a particular local language. So these facts are very essential to us, because when we are developing something we have to hit all those things, we have to keep everything in mind so that it reaches the most. Am I going fast or? Now anybody knows what is WAI? Okay, that is the WAI stands for the Web Accessibility Initiative. Like we have a set of rules and regulation to be followed for web development. That is the W3 sets us the standards for creating web pages and everything. So like for looking into the accessibility factor, WAI has come into play, and it has brought out rules and more of sets of checklists that we have to follow to make a website completely accessible. And WAI stands for Web Accessibility Initiative, and ARIA stands for Accessible Rich Internet Applications. So WAI-ARIA defines a way to make web content and web applications more accessible to people with disabilities. It specially helps with dynamic content and advanced user interface controls developed with Ajax, HTML, JavaScript, and related technologies. Some of the things I will be reading out, just don't think that I am reading out simply from the presentation, because I have not worked on many things like ARIA and all, but I will give you like how it will work and all. So ARIA basically defines a bunch of markup extensions which is used in HTML, and it will help the web developer to provide additional information about the semantic of the various elements to assistive technologies like screen readers. Now Tim Berners-Lee, anybody knows like Who is he? Okay, he is the director of the World Wide Web and also the inventor. I came across this quotation that is like, the power of the web is in its universality. Access by everyone regardless of disability is an essential aspect. Can anybody translate to me, like, what does that mean? It's a very simple statement, like web should be accessible to everybody. That is, web is universal regardless of language, regardless of age, regardless of devices that we use. Now we'll go quickly through the overview of web accessibility guidelines and sorry, I have missed this one, standards. Web accessibility is formally defined by the World Wide Web Consortium, W3C, and it became the official recommendation in 2008. Like there are 4 principal criteria which we have to follow to make a website accessible, fully accessible. I cannot say fully because like it cannot be fully accessible to almost everybody, anything. The 4 criteria are: it has to be perceivable. That means the user should be able to understand the content of it, or regardless of the variety of senses, the output devices and settings. The second one is operable. It has to be operable, means we should be able to use the links, the navigation part, controls. It should be user friendly and including mouse, including the devices like mouse, keyboard, stylus, touch screen, speech and other assistive technologies. Understandable is like content and the user interface must be usable and easy to understand. Like there are, if you see like websites, most of the Indian government websites, it will be very hard to find a very small piece of information also, which is very useful. So you have to design the web in such a way that the interface is very user friendly. It is very easy for you to get what you're looking at exactly. That we have to think when we are starting the project in the initiation process. Robust is content must use standard technologies and be coded in that way that will increase likelihood of its being supported across all web enabled technologies, including assistive technologies and future technologies. It's like right from the way we write the HTML page, starting of the HTML page is like you specify the document type. So from there itself, like you'll have to code it in such a way that it will pass the browser compatibility issues and many other defects, and also it will be useful in the future technologies. Now there's a checklist of things which needs to be looked in, like to go further. Like every web page or web application is different and you may or may not need to address every item on this checklist. However, it can be utilized throughout the life cycle for web-based project. It means like of all these checkpoints, it's not necessary that you have to go through all of it or clear everything, but it will be helpful if you actually look into these principles. Like the first one is, does the keyboard provide access to navigation, in particular the tab, arrow and enter keys, without the use of a mouse? Many times we try to go through a site without using a mouse. So like we have to make sure that the tabs are working, the up and down arrow keys are working. The second thing is like using the keyboard navigation. It's the same stuff, like the flow of the website, like it starts from the logo and then moves on to the navigation part, then moves on to the main banner and then the main actual content of the site. That is it. Do all elements, link, radio buttons, text boxes and drop down work when selected? These we have to keep in mind. Does the link text explain and provide context? Like the anchor tags, whenever you are having anchor tags, it has to have a title attribute, so that the users know like what the anchor is all about without clicking it also. And we have to make sure that this is like one of the major thing I have seen in almost all of the developers. Like we give an image source is equal to images so and so, and all space is almost blank every time with a space. That is for sure. I have seen Nitin doing it. I myself do it sometimes. This is very common, but we have to make, because like see this, all text is very essential for people with disabilities. For us, this is nothing, but for people undergoing the disabilities, it's really essential. It's like removing what sugar from the coffee. Like without sugar, how unlike distasteful the coffee will be. Like
That's like art is a text, man. So
yeah.
if they can't see the image, there is a much possibility that they can't see the
The thing is like blind people use screen readers, so it will read out like what the text is about. If suppose you have an image, suppose let's say that there's an image of this meeting room, so we can write the alt text as like a group of people attending a meeting, so the blind person at least knows that there's an image in which there are some people attending a meeting. At least that information will go to the blind person. And we should be using captions for the multimedia elements. This I'll show you later. And then is the web page organized so that it is readable without the use of an associated style sheet? Many times like our layouts and the styles get attached in the same style. We should make sure that the content part and the layout is separate in a style sheet. What happens is sometimes we should be able to disable the style sheet and then see like if the content we have created is readable, ready to use for the people without the style. If we put up the style, even it should be able to give the content to the user. The user should not be blank like what is there in the website. It should not completely go off. Are there color elements that cannot be identified? We should make sure that the colors that we use are not very dull and it's bright enough for the user to read through. Are data tables coded with column headings and row names in the scope? This is for the table, making table accessible. We have to give headings to the table rows, and also adding summary to the table will be helpful. We have to check whether the web page have frames. If frames are used, we have to make sure that the no frame content is there. If suppose web frame is not supported, then at least the no frame content will be available to the user. If there is a limited time response, are users prompted to request more time? I do not have more information on this one. Are electronic form elements organized in a logical order and labeled? The forms, which is the most important part of a website, it connects the user with the website, so most of the interaction happens in a form. So we have to make sure that the form is accessible in all ways, like through mouse or through keyboard. We have to see those points. And are links provided for applets, plugins, or third-party software that might be required to access content on the web page? If there are such things, applets, plugins, and third-party software that we need to show in the web page, we have to make sure that there are links. If suppose that is not working, we have to give a corresponding text to it. Like if suppose Flash is not working, we can give a link which says like download Flash or something like that. So these are some of the checklists that I have collected from the full checklist that is available in this link. If anybody wants to go through it, like I will provide you the checklist. So these are the checklist, web accessibility checklist. Then the common web accessibility issues. I will just read through this one. Most of these are clearly: failure to include alternative text for images, use of CAPTCHA, failure to provide adequate alternative for other inaccessible content, failure to use HTML header elements properly, failure to explicitly associate form inputs with the labels. We miss this most of this time, form labels. Failure to ensure sufficient difference between foreground, that is the text color, and then the background color. Failure to identify data tables with summary or caption. We miss this also sometimes. Failure to mark up data tables correctly. Failure to ensure sites can be used without the mouse. Use of on-change event handlers with select menus. Now there are some points which will help us in making web accessible. That is, the first one is the images and the animation. Make sure, all of you, please make sure that we add a alt tag to the images that we use. Use the alt attribute to describe the function of each visual. Multimedia, provide captioning and transcripts of audio and descriptions of video. Whatever video we are showing in the web page, if we can add an audio clip to it, it will be very beneficial for the deaf people. Hypertext links. Give your links unique and descriptive names. Example, if you are pointing visitors to a page called About Us, try not to say click. If suppose there is a link About Us, and you need to give the title attribute, instead of saying simply click here, we can there's a better way of saying, like, to learn more about our company, read about us. So this will lead to the About Us page. At the same time, it is giving the anchor tag, the title attribute, to learn instead of simple click here, because there can be n number of click here in the web page. So to avoid, to make it more specific to that anchor, it's better to make it a little bit descriptive. Page organization, use headings, list, consistent structure. Use CSS for layout and style wherever possible. Use color with care. Make sure the background and the text color have a lot of contrast for easy reading. Scripts, applets and plugins, provide alternative context in case active features are inaccessible or unsupported. Frames, use the no frame elements and meaningful titles. Tables, because screen readers, when they are reading the tabular data, it will read line by line. So we have to make sure that the table is also put up in an accessible way. We are providing proper headings, the columns, the summary, the caption to the table. And more importantly, like, table is more useful to create tabular data, not for layout. I guess most people are not using table for layout. Initially, like when we were starting, we used to create web pages, entire web pages, with using table alone, but now that is not there. Now the 9th point is design your forms for accessibility using of labels, field sets, and legends. Ensure that all content can be accessed with the keyboard alone in a logical way. Use area roles and landmarks. Area roles is like when you are applying, suppose you have a navigation nav, and then you have a list of suppose 5 or 6 items, home, about us and all the stuff. To that nav element you can assign the area role of navigation, so it will be easy for the screen reader to read out that part of the page is a navigation. Make dynamic content accessible. Choose a content management system that supports accessibility, like WordPress plugins and all you use. So while to make that also more accessible, you have to check out the widgets and all. Whatever widgets that you are using, please make sure that those things are also accessible. And most importantly, once your web page is ready, please make sure that you validate it in the W3 validator. Okay, like can any of you tell me, like, one feature we can do to make it web accessible? 1 point, anybody? I just read out around 15 points. It's just one point. Yeah, all tags. Yeah. Title attributes. Yeah. Transcripts. Yeah.
Proper contrast in foremost color and background.
Yeah.
Then for iframes.
Sorry. Yeah. That is there. And Annie.
Audio thing.
Yeah. If we have a video, then audio clip is better. Then Deepak.
That's different good devices.
Yeah.
If we have video, then why to use audio?
That is a very important question. I also had the same question till yesterday. I'll show you the why. I'm just asking this question not to make it little bit boring, okay, because this is post lunch time and we might feel sleepy.
There is a chance that my video is not playable.
Okay, that one I cannot say.
Because of the formation.
Now this was just to show you one capture image type. The most of the time the capture image that we see is of this, the first one type, where only the characters are there. Sometimes it is very difficult to read out those characters. Now to make the capture image more useful, what we can do is like the third one you can see, there is a audio clip in that one. There is a small sound icon here. So if the user is not able to see, the blind person is not able to see, but at least he can click, not I cannot say click, but
If someone cannot read that text,
which one?
this text, then they may.
The blind person will not be able to read it, but the screen reader software, I will show you the video like how the screen reader works, then it will be clear.
If a normal person couldn't read this text, then
Yeah.
they can.
At that time, it is it is useful in either ways. Normal people can also use it, and people with disability also can use it. And that is one good advantage in this third image. If you see the second image, there is one small text saying try an audio capture. That is the same as the icon given here. And then one more is there, can't read this, try another. This is a very good way of presenting, because sometimes I myself have failed in putting the capture text correct many times. This is one feature that we can use. Now there are various types of disabilities, and the first one is blindness. It's on? Oh, sorry.
Actually,
Okay, like there are different types of disabilities. Like I just want to know one thing, like is there anyone who has who actually is in touch with like people with disabilities, blind people or color blindness or any other form of disability? Because what happens is, like, when you know that person personally, you know the shortcomings, like how his lifestyle is, how he does things and all, just to understand their world. So the first type is the blindness one. People who are blind need meaningful text equivalent for images, so a screen reader can read the information they need to navigate using the keyboard. The second one is the colorblind. Can any of you read the first one? Okay, most people are not colorblind here. So the second one is very visible. It is 62. The colorblindness is nothing but the inability to distinguish between the colors. Some people need higher contrast and alternative ways for identifying colors. Now, low vision or poor eyesight. The image that you can see, I can relate very well because I also have like negative power, and so for people with low vision, we need larger fonts and higher contrast. Then impacts of aging, like with age goes our the normal way of our life, like see from the eyesight to hearing, everything goes down. Deafness or hard of hearing. People who are deaf or hard of hearing require visual representation. It is exactly the opposite. For blind people, we need to give the audio. For deaf people, we need to give the visual representation. Then motor disabilities. People with difficulties in moving, controlling or coordinating movement of the body and may experience difficulties using the mouse or even the keyboards. This is one disability for which, like, to make the web accessible, it is quite difficult. And also one more is there, that is the cognitive disabilities. Like it impacts the ability to access, process or remember information. Most of you guys have seen the movie Tare Zameen Pe, and in that the child is schizophrenic, in which he is not able to differentiate between D and B. So those type of disability comes under this cognitive disabilities. This accessibility for users with cognitive disabilities can be a greater challenge than for those with the other type of disabilities, but still we can help them with the user-centered and accessible design. Whatever best we can do that one. The last one is the situational disability. Prevents you from functioning normal in your usual manner. Examples are loud or quiet environment, temporary injury, multitasking, driving, and non-native language. If at all you access a site in which the site is in any other language like Chinese or Arabic or any other language, then you are restricted in that way. So that is a situational disability. So we should always have the option which gives you the choice of language options. This I got as a very example which is very relevant. Have you ever been in a noisy room and not heard your mobile ring? That's an example of a situational disability. And how would you avoid that? I mean, at least you should be knowing that the mobile phone has rang. The vibration will work. Now, like assistive technology, for those people with disabilities, there are different assistive technologies like screen readers for blind. There are screen readers, Braille displays, screen magnifiers, and optical character recognition. These are some images to show you screen reader software. This JAWS and Orca are the screen reader softwares, and this is to show you the blind people accessing the net. A screen now for people who have who need like larger font size to read the screen properly. A screen magnifier is a software that interfaces with the computer's graphical output to present enlarged screen. The same screen will be enlarged for the user to see it better. Visually impaired people with little or no functional vision can use a screen reader. The second one is more clear, even the third. Now there is a video on like how does the screen reader actually work. Let's just play it.
I'm Neil Ewers. I work for the Trace Research and Development Center here in Madison, and one of my jobs is to look at all applications, web browsers, word processors, etc., see how well they work with screen readers.
A screen reader is a piece of software that allows the user to either write a speech synthesizer
or touch via a Braille display with the information on the screen. The screen reader will follow along and say exactly what I'm doing.
Synthesizer test ...
Synthesizer test, that's the one we want.
This is the eloquent speech synthesizer. Most synthesizers are able to speak at a variety of speech rates at a variety of vocal pitches. Many speak with different voices, but some even speak in different languages.
I can ask the screen reader to tell me various things about what I'm reading. For example, if I'm on a title, and I press Insert F, it's going to tell me some information about the text.
Character formatting, Times New Roman, 16 point, bolded, style, heading 1. Line spacing, single paragraph formatting, aligned left, outline level 1.
Now that's a whole bunch of text, but what I discern from that is it's a title, it's a certain style level in Word, and I know that it's a font size bigger than what I've been dealing with. But I only did that because I sort of thought I was on a title. The point is, it takes an awful long time for a screen reader user to get a layout even of a simple page. One of the things I can't do is use the mouse. I can move it along a mouse pad, and I have no clue where the mouse pointer on the screen is. What screen readers have done to help get around this is to allow the user to use the number pad keys to actually move the mouse pointer. And the screen reader gives me an ability to read by sentence by doing Alt down arrow.
This is the eloquent speech synthesizer.
Or I can read by word.
Digits here many. Speed. Width.
Or by letter.
Space W-I-T-H space.
Once again, I'm only using the keystrokes that you could use in Word. I am only reading a word at a time. If I were able to see the screen, I would know that there were a couple titles on the screen that are in bold letters, and they're centered, and they're in larger text. I can't see them. So the problem a blind user has is that one begins to read not knowing anything about the layout of the page. The only way you know what's on the page is when you get to it. Greg Vanderheiden, our director, has often referred to it as the soda straw approach. You're looking through this small hole. You're reading one word at a time, and that's all you see. And that's all I hear until I get to the next word. I have no clue that down halfway down the page is a bold heading. Just the other day I was reading something that made no sense to me whatsoever until I got to about what I assumed the middle of the page was. And then what was on the middle of the page said, read the text below and use these instructions to fill out the top part of the page. Well, geez, you know, if I'd seen, I would have gone right there. But my problem as a screen reader user is I can't. Another application that is used a lot by people who use screen readers is the World Wide Web. And let's say I wanted to go to the trace page. I type it in.
T-R-A-C-E, here, W-I-S-C-D-E-D-U.
And hit enter.
Center. Page has 40 links. Trace Research and Development Center. Graphic Trace Center. College of Engineering. University of Wisconsin-Madison.
And what you heard it say is it told me how many links were on the page. It told me the title of the page. Now that's hit graphic, because if the graphics had been on in the browser, there would have been a picture there of that text. And because graphics are off, we use the alt text, which tells me what the graphic would have been. One of the things the screen reader allows me to do is to bring up a list of links, so I can really get an overview of just the links on the page. So if I do insert F7.
Links list dialog. Links list new. Frequently asked questions and...
So I can arrow down now, and I know that everything I get to is a link.
What's new at the Trace Center? Help using this site. List information and archives.
Screen readers allow me to basically have access to the printed page, which I've had before, but it's mostly been in the form of people reading books to me on tape. There's a lot less time taken out for me to do things. There's a lot less work involved. There's a lot less dependence on others for reading stuff to me. I have done this often enough that I get used to reading pretty rapidly. So one of the things I can do is actually speed up the way in which the screen reader
Just stop
reads.
it, or you want to
And
continue?
The
higher the numbers go, the faster it goes.
64, 75, 86, 97, 108, 108.
This is about the speed at which I read. So if I then tap back the OK button, and then we read the document. You understood that, right?
Okay. So that's how the screen reader works. So did you feel anything after watching this video? Like how difficult the life is for a blind user? Now there are certain devices, this Braille we can use with certain devices like iPhone, we can use it to laptops, then iPad. There's also another video how it is used.
Hi, I'm here to tell you about the Braille display and Apple iPhone 4 and how these two devices can work together. This is the Braille display and this is the iPhone. So what I have right now is I've connected the Braille display via Bluetooth to the iPhone, and I will be driving the iPhone without ever touching its screen. This is how it works. Braille display is a device that communicates the text on the screen, or in this case on the iPhone screen, via the alphabet known as Braille. Braille is the alphabet used by blind people that is composed of several dots, and these dots shape certain letters. Now you don't need to be concerned about the letters and the dots at this point. All you guys want to see is how the dots actually move on the Braille display, because it's going to become very important. So you can see as I press keys on the Braille display, the dots change to reflect the icons on the iPhone screen. So right now I'm reading the word calculator, this is the word settings, and so on and so forth. Then I can perform different functions to click on those icons and navigate the screen, and this is where the fun begins. Okay, let's do a couple of things with the Braille display. So what you'll see me doing, I'm going to be pressing keys on the Braille display. All of the commands will be performed exclusively by using those keystrokes. And again, I want to reiterate the fact that I'm not going to be touching the screen of the iPhone at all. So for example, in this instance, if I wanted to go in my icons here, go to iPod, phone, Mail, Safari, I can feel with my fingers the words as they would appear on the screen. Mail, Safari. So I'm going to switch to the next page. Go to the very top of this page, where I find my iTunes icon. I'm going to hit click iTunes. And the next thing I want to do here is to pick new releases. So as I navigate right now, I see all these things, genres, and I come to the featured album button, click. What we see is a White Lies single by Stacey Clark. I'm going to navigate to the track, click, and play a little bit of this track.
Selected. Track 1. 1 minutes. 2 minutes. 45 seconds. 2. 1. Selected. Track 1. 1 minutes. 2 minutes.
Okay. That's it for the Braille side. Now for deaf or hard of hearing, we have closed captioning, transcripts and show sounds. Closed captioning and transcripts or showing sounds. That was the question you had in mind, and I also had till yesterday. Like in TV screens, also news channels, we will be seeing the video, and together with at the bottom of the screen, we will be seeing flyers showing the same text flowing across. Till yesterday, I was not knowing why the text was there at the bottom of the screen, but it is basically for the people who cannot see the screen. Sometimes it is reading. Sometimes the text will be read out again and again, and sometimes it is just displayed for the people who can see, not hear. Then word prediction aids we have. This is quite common, all of us have it. Then writing and comprehension aids for cognitive disabilities. Reading also, like they have a screen through which they can see the enlarged portion of a book. Or now there are different web accessibility tools. Web accessibility, for checking web accessibility, we have all these links. Okay. Now the couchsurfing.org. Let's check the accessibility of one. Okay, let's use the second one, this one. So here it says like congratulations, no problems, it passes the accessibility test. Like some of the websites which passes the accessibility criteria are IBM, that USA.gov and all. Some with the accessibility issues are the common, this IRCTC website. There is no need to test it only. Then our site also has it. Mindfire solution also has some accessibility issues. You can see like there are a lot of accessibility issues here, input labels, alt text and all. Okay, next we have is quick links and resources. For creating accessible tables, I have all these accessible links. I could not create the examples, I was running out of time today. I can provide you all of this. Tab index is also very essential. Most people have seen this example, I guess. Like Google has a tab index of 1, but in the sequence it is in the middle. W3 Schools has a tab index of 2 and Microsoft has a tab index of 3. So what actually should have happened was like W3 first, then Google second, then Microsoft third. But what happens in the real is Google goes first, then W3 Schools and the Microsoft. That is the usage of this tab index 1, 2 and 3. Then there's a very good website on web accessibility, that is this BBC one. It has everything, like the disability types, what goes with it, how-to guides. I cannot see, I am blind, I can't hear, like what to do in this case, in these scenarios. Like many of the things I have told you, but if you want to go in detail, like here are the things. And there are also lots of case studies in this one, if you want to read through. The last side is the questions one. You guys have any questions? Okay.
No web browser is built for these transcripts, speak out softwares.
Yeah.
But it's a feature of OS and other softwares.
No, the what you mentioned, sorry, I didn't get properly.
Like in video, the screen is using some device.
Yeah, that is the screen reader software that we need to install.
We can use Siri instead of that.
CD.
Or we can talk
Okay.
directly what he was doing.
No. He's accessing the web now. How can we use CD in that one?
No, he was accessing the phone. Using that device.
Accessing the phone.
Video iPhone. He was using
Okay,
iPhone.
maybe he wanted to use iPhone itself. That I cannot justify.
Siri.
Then any other stuff? Then thank you. One question, like, did you guys find it helpful or in any way useful to you guys? Okay. Yeah, thank you. And my thing is done.